The House passed that $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Seth Meyers said Democrats are calling it a landmark bill that will give Americans desperately needed financial assistance during the pandemic. Republicans are calling it not what Dr. Seuss would have wanted. Kimmel, no Republicans voted for the bill in the House or the Senate, even though more than 70% of Americans support it. The only other bill 70% of Americans support is Murray. Think about it. Well, it's very rare to have that, but Republicans in Congress can't support it because Democrats in Congress do support it. If a meteor was hurtling toward the earth and Chuck Schumer said, we've got to stop this, Mitch McConnell would be like, no, we don't. No, it could lead to socialism. Kimmel, it will give Americans more access to health care and boost the vaccination rate. So naturally, Republicans are against it. Vote for whoever you want. I just read them. James Acaster resents his audience, says Vulture. He resents some big portion of them, at least. The fans who get angry at him for swearing, the people who try to make jokes with him after show, and especially the ones who engage with him on Twitter. In his new special, Code Lasagna Hate Myself 1999, available on Vimeo, James Acaster picks at the relationship between a comedian and an audience, laying out fundamental strangeness about who he is and how this all works. James says, audiences are the worst part of this job. I swear, do you have any idea how demeaning this job is night after night? I'm the one out of everyone in the room who knows the most about comedy, and I've got to win your approval. Brian Regan spoke to Vulture about opening a show. He says, when you're coming out on stage, you haven't said anything yet. That's always the most difficult part of a routine for me. I was fortunate enough to do a number of Letterman shows, and I do Fallon's 5-minute spots. It's the first 30 seconds you agonize over. As far as the viewer is concerned, they know nothing about you. Ladies and gentlemen, here's something. Here's somebody you know nothing about. That might as well be the intro. So the curtain opens up, and there's a guy walking out. In my case, it's me. I always say the difficulty in doing stand-up comedy is not knocking down the pins. It's setting up the pins. A lot of people can be funny and knock down the pins. It's the setting up the pins that weren't there to begin with. So when you come out through a curtain, you have to set up the pins quickly. You have to go, all right, I have to establish something. Brian tells a story about agonizing about how to get into his first joke. And some other comedian, Brian doesn't remember the comedian's name, lost to time, but other comedian said, what's your first joke? And Brian told him, and other comedian said, why don't you just do the joke? Brian's like, what do you mean? Like, just come out and do it? And he goes, yeah, why not? And I'm like, you have to come out and go, hey, how's everybody doing? Other comedian said, they know you're a comedian. They know why they're sitting there. Just come out and do the joke. And I did it, and it worked. It was a lifelong comedic lesson for me that you don't need to put a lot of butter on stuff. You can just come out and go, here it is. Audiences are willing to ride the ride. It says comedy out on the marquee. They're not out there scratching their head going, why is this guy telling us a joke? Tig Notaro talked to the Last Laugh Pod. She said, I feel like I struggle with moments where I think, gosh, am I not a real comedian? Because after I had children, I was okay with scaling back. I felt really happy and fulfilled being home. And then here I am in the middle of a pandemic, and we're taking it very seriously, and we're home, and I'm okay with that. I'm really enjoying being with my family, and I love comedy. If somebody said tomorrow, comedy's back, I'd be thrilled to be on stage. I know there are comedians who are married with kids out at venues every night, and all I could say is, we're different people. But yeah, I used to get up numerous times a night, and I don't miss it. I miss stand-up, but I'm also okay with time at home, and it's given me a chance to do other things. I do have material from right now. I think it's kind of impossible to not. It's a completely new experience. Jason Zinneman wrote for the New York Times about new experiences. He said, last month, I walked through the lobby of a comedy club and started to make small talk with a neon jellyfish. This is going somewhere. That might sound like a trippy pandemic-induced dream, but it's actually the latest experiment in live entertainment online. Using the new platform Bramble, the Brooklyn Comedy Collective recently started presenting shows that give audience members freedom to move through rooms in a virtual theater and mingle with other ticket buyers before and after the performance. After choosing an avatar, Jason was a blue swan, you enter the theater. Oh, did you hear the queen slip in? I didn't say you enter the theater. Wait, you enter the theater. Did you hear that slip in? You enter the theater and can talk up to 5 people at a time. Their faces emerge on the screen when you approach them, walk away, and they disappear. It's as if a comedy club merged with a video game. Whether it's the future of comedy is unclear, but it definitely felt like an attempt to fill a desperate need of the present. Then he lost me. Here's the next 2 paragraphs. As we reach the anniversary of the shutdown, I badly miss live performances, but what has surprised me is that the loss I've felt most keenly is not that of seeing artists on stage, but of being in the audience. Anyone who believes in the wisdom of crowds has never seen Jeff Foxworthy do comedy in an arena. Why the shot at Jeff Foxworthy? Jeff Foxworthy has sold more comedy albums than anybody. Jeff Foxworthy sells out arenas. Jeff Foxworthy is a good guy. I have spent a lot of time with Jeff Foxworthy. He's awesome. He's nice. I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about him other than just being a comedy snob. He's just slinging jokes. He's just trying to have a good time. If it's not your brand of comedy, that's fine. But why the dig, man? Foxworthy is awesome. So now I'm annoyed at this article, right? After a few lackluster to mediocre sets, I lingered in the lobby with the jellyfish. We chatted with a friendly lawyer from Toronto and talked trash about one of the jokes when we saw an avatar of a performer from the show walk by, and I immediately changed the subject. It was the kind of awkward social interaction I hadn't had in a long time. Felt good. But after a year of live online entertainment has never really captured one key element, focus. There's an intensity of attention in a crowd fully engaged in sharing a space that's absent looking at your screen. Internet shows do provide community, but it's harder to lose yourself in the show when there are other tabs open or to suspend disbelief sitting on your bed. From The Guardian, a fictional stand-up confronts his limits in an intriguing time capsule of 1980s Soviet history. This is a review of something called The Humorist, the plot. It's 1984. The U.S.S.R. is on the verge of collapse, and so is Boris Arkadiev, a fictional stand-up who has enormous mainstream success but crumbles under bouts of insecurities. A failed novelist, Boris now tours the country with a banal routine about a naughty monkey. The KGB approves and the audience roars with laughter, but Boris merely simmers with apathy. Mixing the weariness and absurdities of life in the U.S.S.R. makes The Humorist highly watchable. The actor's performance is outstanding, his body language is subtle, but the actor has a magnetic way of sparkling disillusionment or defiance with a simple look. It's called The Humorist. It's out now on a platform called Your Screen. And remember, in the Soviet Union, commercials take break for you. It's Sunday, so you know what that means, Matt Berry Sunday. I'm not going to read an essay this week. There's actual Matt Berry news. Are you ready? Matt Berry has a new album. It's called The Blue Elephant. It'll be out May 14th. Vulture says it's a psychedelic venture he was already talking about while promoting his last album, Phantom Birds, in the fall of 2020. Along with the announcement came the release of the single Aboard, a track that evokes the gradual end of our long quarantine winter. Vulture says, I'd say it's the perfect soundtrack for an afternoon stroll on the first day of the year when being outside doesn't physically hurt. The revelation on the album's cover art also leaves a lot to unpack, featuring a painting of Joseph Merrick, also known as the Elephant Man, in a blue suit. Matt Berry's recently canceled but very good series Year of the Rabbit featured a fictionalized version of Merrick as one of its most delightful characters, making us wonder if perhaps this is an homage to that unfinished work. It's also unclear whether Matt Berry painted it himself, but it wouldn't be the first time he's painted his own cover art, so we finally have something to look forward to. Well, this and the vaccine. Amen, Vulture. I've told you I've been watching Mr. Mayor. That's the Ted Danson sitcom. By the way, I was watching it with the wife, and my son comes down. It's like, I recognize that voice. Oh, yeah. That's the guy from The Good Place. And we're like, wife and I look at each other like, Good Place? Like, he's the guy from Cheers? But Cheers has been over since 20 years before my son was born. So, yeah, he doesn't know Cheers. But from the LA Times, they wrote what Mayor Eric Garcetti might borrow from Mr. Mayor. And I'm like, all right, I'm intrigued. With the season over, here's a look back at 5 good ideas from Mayor Bremmer's, that's Ted Danson's, fictional city and how likely they are to happen in Mayor Garcetti's real-life Los Angeles. Idea number 1, cut down all the palm trees. Could it happen? After years of deferred maintenance, LA's Urban Forestry Division is finally working to repair the city's canopy, starting with a tree census to determine the location and species of every planted city tree. The 1990 census, 30 years ago, estimated there were 75,000 palms on LA streets. Even though there aren't any current plans to remove the existing ones, palms are no longer on the city's approved to plant list, so they will be weeded out eventually. Oh, there's going to be some sad future where there are no palm trees in Los Angeles? That's sad. Idea number 2, stop drilling for oil. They drill for oil in Los Angeles? Yeah, the city has not banned private drilling in residential neighborhoods. That's crazy. Idea number 3, ban flying taxi services. Could it happen? Well, flying taxis are still a way off, but last December, the city announced its plan for a flying taxi division that could soon be prepping new landing sites for the Ubers of the skies. In the meantime, there are plenty of services offering short-hop helicopter rides for astronomical prices. Idea number 4, put a recycling plant in a rich neighborhood. In the sitcom, they put it in Brentwood. It was a funny episode. Andie MacDowell played herself as the president of the Brentwood Homeowners Association, who thinks that the trash, a metaphor, surely, should stay east. The taxes that we pay, we don't deserve this. Could it happen? The LA Times believes the forces of NIMBYism remain robust, so they think no. And could Los Angeles add more bus lanes? Well, yeah, they could. Last summer, Mayor Garcetti cut the ribbon for 2 new downtown bus lanes and another in October. And at least a half dozen more have been proposed. No word if Mr. Mayor will be back for season 2, but Garcetti won't be renewed. He's termed out in 2022. Hopefully Mr. Mayor comes back. All right, that is your daily comedy news for today. At some point today, I will jump on Instagram and tell you who won. Was it Ricky Gervais or John Mulaney? And I will tell you what the new matchup is for Comedy's Top Dog Instagram at Daily Comedy News. If you like what I do here, you can buy me a coffee. So what do? You go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews and you throw a couple bucks in the kitty. If you are one of the members, there are 2 bonus episodes there for you to hear. I will run them on the main feed at some point, but I had them in the can. I wanted to share them with people who were kind enough to buy me a coffee. Here's one right now. It's an iced coffee with caramel from a donuts chain, a national donuts chain, mostly popular in the Northeast, which I frequent not 7 times a week. I mean, it's at least 7 because I go every morning. It's more like 9 or 10 times a week. Follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows. Oh, yeah, it's Sunday, so a new episode of the weekly comedy thing. That's on the Live by Live app, Live X Live, the former Slacker Radio. I host the weekly comedy thing. It's like this plus bits, so if I talk about John Mulaney, I can play a bit by John Mulaney. So if you like stand-up comedy, and you probably do if you're 15 minutes into this podcast, you can check that out. It is free, and there are several streaming comedy stations that do nothing but play stand-up. I recommend the Today's Comedy channel. I am the programmer of that. All right, I'm out. See you tomorrow.